Right, if everyone's okay, I'll make a quick start. Just would like to start by thanking everybody for joining us this evening. We've got quite a few people who signed up already, and I'm sure we'll get more attendees as I finish my sentences. The numbers keep going up. We've got over 170 people signed up, so we're expecting over 100 to turn up this evening. So there is a lot of interest in these plans, and we're very excited to present them to you this evening. This is part of a wider public consultation program for British Land's plans to bring forward a scheme at the Broadway Connection, or 10 to 40 the Broadway, as you've known it until now. And we have had several face-to-face events in person, public exhibitions at the Ealing Broadway Shopping Centre. We've got a very active consultation website for people who want to join us online. And obviously we're doing this webinar as well this evening. And there are several other opportunities to get in touch with the team and ask your questions. This is the purpose of this public consultation is both to have people who live and work in the area or have an interest in the area in any way, learn about the scheme directly from the development team, also ask any questions they might have, but also for us to get your feedback on the plans and understand your views about the proposals being put forward. So this will be an interactive session. We will first deliver a presentation about half an hour. I think it took us in the last kind of rehearsal, and then open up the floor to questions. Because we do have quite large numbers of attendees. I think you've all received an email just in terms of housekeeping and how we're going to run this session. Obviously, we are recording this session, and then the recording will be uploaded on the consultation website. And for that purpose, your camera and microphone are off automatically. So the screen that you are seeing now is what everybody is seeing. So we don't have any kind of privacy infringement. And also in terms of interacting with members of the team, we encourage you to use the Q&A function of Zoom that's right at the bottom of your page, and ask any questions you might have, or make any comments. And you can do this throughout the presentation. You don't have to wait until we get to the Q&A section in the presentation. And anytime throughout the presentation or this evening, if you're having any kind of technical issues or difficulties, do let us know, either by responding to the Zoom email that you received earlier, or by using the Q&A function. So I'll start with quick introductions. My name is Lorena Burchu. I work for London Communications Agency, and myself and my colleague Lottie have organized this event this evening for the purpose that I've just mentioned, to inform and hear from you about proposals for the Broadway Connection. And I'm joined by quite a few people from the development team. David P and David B from British Land. Obviously, you also want to hear from the architects behind these exciting plans. So we've got Richard from Stanton Williams, and James Owens will be covering any kind of issues to do with planning policy and any technical matters in terms of planning. Ivan Jovanovic, I think is our specialist. Ivan, sorry, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well. I think there is something wrong with your microphone, Ivan. Sorry, is it just me, or can anybody else hear? No. In the meantime, apologies, Andrew and Tim. I didn't skip you. Also from British Land, some of you locally may know them because they're mainly involved with running the Ealing Broadway Shopping Center as well. So they're known to quite a few of you locally. Ivan, are we back on?
Can you hear me?
There we go. Yes.
So we are sustainability consultants and MEP engineers on the job. So we'll answer questions on energy strategy and sustainability strategy.
And we know how important sustainability is locally and to British Land as well. So we're anticipating questions on that as well. So David, over to you to take us through the presentation.
Brilliant. I'll just unmute myself. Richard, do you want to bring the presentation up, and can you just flip to the contents page, please? Thank you. So just a quick intro in terms of what we're here today to talk to you about. I'll do a very quick summary of the position in relation to this site from a British Land point of view, and then I'll pass over to Richard as well, who will talk through the scheme concept, etc. So if you can just move Richard onto the context slide, please. Which I think is the next one. Thank you. So I was just going to spend really a minute or two just talking you through the commercial context, the rationale behind our proposals that we're going to present to you today, and why we think it's important to deliver the scale of development that we're proposing in Ealing Town Centre. As some of you know already, British Land actually own a sizable proportion of the town centre, which you can see from the map on the left. So it's in our interest to really look at the future of the town centre in a strategic way, looking over the next sort of 10 to 20 years. And based on independent advice that we commissioned in the last year or two, we now have a really clear vision for Ealing Town Centre to redefine itself as an office location. And our proposals today just reflect one part of the wider master plan that we're looking at for the town centre, which also includes the recent refurbishment of Crystal House, which has now been rebranded as 54 the Broadway, which is the main office block, which many of you will be familiar with, above the retail shops of Amazon Fresh, of Holland and Barrett. This has now been let to the Department for Work and Pensions, and we're also looking alongside that at the redevelopment and stroke refurbishment of International House, which is the block that runs along the high street, which has the units of Wasabi, Wagamama's, Turtle Bay underneath. And that will also be refurbished for further office provision. Some of you also might have heard in the local press that we're bringing forward a new large cultural venue for the town centre as well, which will include a new 3-screen cinema, live performance space, putting on live music acts and potential for comedy nights as well. And that will sit in the basement underneath International House, replacing the former nightclub, the former Carmen nightclub that used to sit there. And that will be operated by the really local group, and we hope it will be a great addition to the town centre, something that the town centre just doesn't have at the moment. Altogether, as part of our master plan, we're looking at delivering around 50,000 square metres of new Grade A office provision to the town centre, which we think would bring around 4,000 to 5,000 new office workers into the town. And we believe this quantum of development will really help to establish Ealing as a principal office location in West London, which is able to compete with other established office locations that have really grown in recent times, like Hammersmith, Chiswick Business Park, and also White City. And importantly, and this is absolutely crucial, we think this will go hand in hand with helping the town centre to thrive into the future, particularly the retail as well, which has really struggled with in the last 10 years with obviously the arrival of Westfield and online and so on. So we think that this is crucial to maintain the retail pitch of Ealing Town Centre. It's also worth noting, because this has come up a bit in consultation, that we aren't proposing any additional new residential floor space as part of these proposals that we're going to talk you through today. Richard, do you mind just moving to the next slide, please? So this is the project team. Lorena introduced a number of the members just before I came on. British Land, as you'll appreciate, are the developer behind this scheme, but I wanted to really introduce Stanton Williams to you all, who we appointed immediately after buying the site, the 10 to 40 site in 2017. And we appointed Stanton Williams really because of their experience of dealing with projects in historic settings, and they're a multi-award-winning architectural firm, and we think it's really important to get the architect right on this scheme, given the history of the previous two applications that have come forward. And the rest of the team is here. I'm not going to go through everyone else, and members can obviously answer questions as we go through. Do you mind, Richard, moving on to the next one, please? So in terms of the scheme brief, I mean, I could spend probably about 15 minutes going through this, but I think it's just important that I pick out a couple of the key points to mention here. The first being really, and it's what I talked about at the start, is delivering that critical mass of office provision for the town centre for the reasons I've just outlined. And the second, which is absolutely crucial to this, and as I said, the reason that we appointed Stanton Williams was to respect Ealing's rich cultural heritage and the built environment. And we'll demonstrate how we're going to do that through this presentation. Richard, just mind moving to the next one? And just before I do pass over to Richard, I just wanted to touch on the planning policy position around the site. So the site is allocated in the current local plan for mixed-use development appropriate to the town centre, including retail, commercial offices, leisure and entertainment uses. The site allocation also says that the site is an appropriate location for a tall building, obviously subject to detailed design, etc. And this is also supported by the council's recent tall building guidance, which seeks to direct taller buildings to sites identified in the development plan. I also wanted to pick up on policy 1.1 of the local plan, which seeks to deliver around 94,000 square metres of new office provision to the town centre, with around 90,000 square metres of that directed specifically into Ealing Town Centre. So I'm now going to pass you over to Richard from Stanton's to talk you through the scheme design.
Thanks, David. So good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Wardle. I'm a director at Stanton Williams, and as David said, Stanton Williams are the architects for this project we're going to talk to you about this evening. It's important to acknowledge, David really mentioned it, that I think we're really representing a broader design team this evening, a whole series of consultants, specialist engineers, etc. I've been asked to speak through the scheme about 20 minutes. Many of the images you're going to see are in the exhibition that's been up for over a week or so. I think it's important probably to say that the design work is not finished, it's all work in progress. The slides will really focus on broad strategies and concepts. We're not at the stage of selecting materials and finishes just yet. For us, this project is about the sort of transformation of the key neglected part of Ealing, one of which, as David has said, is really designated for development. I'll describe our approach to heritage-led regeneration, including the retention of a range of key existing buildings. I'll also describe our proposals to increase permeability, create public space and provide a range of workspace provision, which is aligned with the British Land Brief. And I think most importantly, all of this is underpinned by an extremely forward-thinking sustainability strategy. So I'll begin by talking a little bit about the site. Just to be clear, it's the site I'm identifying here. A number of people have asked if it stretches broader than that. It's specifically that site that we're talking about today. You'll recognise the site. We have the station, the Elizabeth line on the right hand side, the Arcadia Centre on the left hand side, Ealing Broadway along the bottom, and the railway and Haven Green to the north of the site. The site at the moment, as you may know, is quite an impenetrable site. You can't really venture into it. You can walk around it, including the passageway Haven Place at the north and the south, north and the west. Here are a selection of a few images of parts of the site. You can see the Haven Place top left. There is a range of a number of buildings which we're looking to retain, and I'll talk you through those. You can see those; they're just behind a lot of the later, more recent shop fronts. And then the bottom three images taken slightly elevated views, looking at some of the secondary later additions to the existing buildings that we're looking to remove in the heart of the site to allow the development to take place. It's important to say that the scheme has really been drawing on a number of appraisals and work that's been done by other people to identify those buildings, those existing buildings which make a positive contribution to the conservation area. One of the appraisals there on the left, that diagram. On the right hand side, we are in a conservation area, albeit the edge of it bounding onto the railway. And we are also sandwiched between two important listed buildings, the NatWest Bank on the east and the Grade 2 star listed Gilbert Scott Church on the west. And those have really been primary in our thinking in terms of the evolution of the development of the volumes. It's important to say that we want the project to be to really come from an understanding of the built and cultural heritage of the site and of Ealing. We may not be able to bring back the theatre in the top left image, but we are looking to create a new home for the Ealing Club in a similar location to the existing location at the moment, and I'll talk about that slightly later. So a little bit about the architectural concept. As I was mentioning, we've been studying the existing buildings on the site, and through a series of appraisals with our team, we've come to the conclusion that there's really three key groups of buildings that we'll be looking to retain, and you can see those here. The other buildings we'll be looking to remove and demolish to allow the new buildings to the new developments take place. And here's a very simple sketch drawing to understand what we might try and do in terms of those ground floor key public areas. If you can see my cursor, here are the three groups of existing buildings that we're looking to retain. The station is on the right of this diagram. Here's the main Broadway at the bottom. And we're looking, as I was saying, to increase permeability through the site, a key connection, the Broadway connection, if you like, between the station and the Broadway at the bottom of the screen. And that's really important because this area of the town centre is incredibly congested. So we're looking to try and create more permeability through the site, both through the sort of primary connection, also a secondary connection located at number 2 to give access to the incredibly busy bus stop at this location here. And then in the centre of the scheme, there's a small courtyard space. The diagram it's not a large public space, a small courtyard space which forms the entrance to the main office building, and also surrounded by a series of active cafe and other uses. So strategically, there are the groups of the three existing buildings that we're looking to retain. We're then looking to add a number of new buildings, but importantly to maintain the line of the existing high street, the sort of integrity, if you like, of these existing pavement level where the buildings are at the moment. So the three groups of buildings, we have number 9 to 16 at the west end, which we're looking to retain. We're looking to put insert a series of new, more traditional, if you like, shop fronts within those units. Number 35, which is used to be car phone warehouse in the ground floor, now Ventals the bakery. We're looking to retain that building and then add an additional building on the two flanks, if you like, to align with the existing alignment on the Broadway. And then the third component, a new gateway building to form one of the entrances into the scheme, and a series of new shop fronts drawn from the existing buildings number 25 to 29 in the centre of the scheme. So in terms of the streetscape, well, what does that look like? Well, there's a sort of representation of trying to bring all that together. You can see the red brick buildings at the left-hand side, number 9 to 16, and number 35 on the right-hand side. Those central white, effectively stucco villas in the centre of the building that we're looking to retain, and a number of other buildings, new buildings, with a sort of coherent shopfront strategy at the lower level. Slightly elevated view, you can see here that those existing buildings, the new buildings we're proposing, and the walkways and connections through into that courtyard space in the centre of the scheme. So just in terms of the massing arrangement, how do all the different spaces and all the different volumes arrange themselves? Well, we've been thinking about it, and this is a series of slides which looks to build up the sort of rationale, if you like, of the overall volumes to achieve the brief that we've been asked to do on this site. So here's the lowest level, if you like, the crust, some of those existing buildings and the new buildings that we're adding on the Broadway. There's a new 2-storey plinth, which contains a series of F&B cafe spaces and leisure spaces at ground and first floor level. Out of that plinth grows a mineral volume, if you like, from the ground, containing a number of larger floor plates at those upper levels. We've conceived the building as a series of interlocking volumes, the upper volume containing some smaller areas of workspace, importantly set back from the lower volume to create a more comfortable relationship with the church. A membrane, if you like, or separating volume between those two parts of the project with a glass pavilion at the upper level. And then importantly, that all brings us to a building that is 21 stories tall. That's ground plus 19 stories plus roof, and 10 stories on the station side, with the glass pavilion on the top. And importantly, we're trying to stitch through as much greenery into the project as we can, a number of terraces and balconies and green spaces to increase well-being, to really make the office workspace, you know, a great place to be and a great place to work. And the greenery really plays a key part in our sustainability strategy, and you can see that from this diagram. This is quite a technical slide, and it's important to point out that there's really a range of sustainability strategies throughout this project. British Land have very ambitious targets in terms of embodied carbon and carbon in use. This is a low carbon, low energy project, and in terms of whole life carbon, we are targeting net carbon zero. This is an all electric building promoting passive design, and our facades are designed to mitigate the heat of the sun's rays, but maximize daylighting to reduce energy within the office building itself. So how have we arranged all of those volumes? Well, we've been challenged with looking at the site and relating it to those different key parts of the context. There's the relationship of the new building and the Broadway. We have the grade 2-star listed church to the west, an appropriate relationship to the station side, and where the building has a relationship with Villiers House, the existing building over the railway station. We have a requirement for some large floor plates at the lower levels. The important view as the building is seen in profile from Haven Green, and the overall height of the building. So we've been looking to push and pull the different volumes to be able to achieve the required brief. So in assessing that, we've been looking at a range of different views. We've really selected 4 key ones for today, A, B, C, D. A being the view from the existing station, you can see that on the left. B, the view from Haven Green looking south. C, east with the church in the foreground, and D, the view looking west with the church in the background. So I'll now go through each of those views in turn to allow you to get a better appreciation of what that might look like. So the first view, the station on the left, the new canopy just being constructed. You can start to see the sort of 9-storey more mineral volume, if you like, in the foreground, the glass pavilion on top properly sort of embedding itself in the lower volume, and then the glass and metal upper volume more reflective to try to really capture the sky. the view of the building from Haven Green. You can see Villiers House on the left. The building sort of nestling, the more mineral building nestling above the tree line, and the more single dominant vertically orientated glass and metal building at the upper level. The view looking east along the Broadway, you can see Dickens Yard on the left and the important church in the foreground. Here you can see the two parts of the volume, importantly the more glass and metal reflective component set back from the Broadway to increase the relationship with the church. And then this is the view looking west. You can see the church in the background and Dickens Yard at the lower level. You can see number 35, Vensel's the bakery, if you like, on the ground floor. In the foreground with its two flanking side walls, the new office building at the lower level, and a number of other number of other existing buildings along the Broadway towards the west. You can see that 9-story more mineral building and start to understand some of the facets on the building and on the elevation, picking up on the sustainability strategy to mitigate the heat of the sun to maximize the daylighting within the floor spaces. You can see some of the greening and the terraces at the upper levels and trying to really stitch that through for the office workspaces, and the more reflective glass and metal upper components, similarly faceted, the glass and being held within a sort of very clear metal framework at the upper level. So views from street level. So this is the plan of the ground floor of the scheme. The station being at the top right of this drawing, the main Broadway at the bottom. And I think it's important to say that we're looking a little bit more wider than just the site itself. So we are looking to increase some of the widths of some of the pavements to create a little bit more generosity around the outer parts of the scheme, and to plant some more additional trees if we're technically able to in some of those locations. So you can see on the ground floor plan a range of sort of retail spaces on the corners, if you like, of the site, restaurant spaces around that central courtyard, with the office, the main office entrance really in the middle of the plan. You'll also notice, I'll just highlight with the cursor, a new entrance to the new Ealing Club at lower ground level in larger, more purpose-built space than exists at the moment, but in the same location as it currently exists. So now, just to conclude, I'll take you on a short journey from the west of the site, journeying up to the station and then into the courtyard. So the first view, looking east along the Broadway, you can see the retained buildings on the left, number 9 to 16, a series of shop fronts, more traditional shop fronts that we'll be installing at the lower level, more retail spaces at this location. The upper spaces of those buildings, a series of smaller workspace type units, could be affordable workspace, creative spaces, more maker spaces, etc. And you can see the other buildings on the Broadway as you look into the distance, and the NatWest Bank in the distance. So as you move further along the Broadway, here's a view, number 16 on the left, one of the best buildings I think on the site. You can start to see the existing buildings, number 26, 29 in the middle. Those newer components that we're looking to install with some new shop fronts at the lower level, and a view through into the courtyard and the main office entrance in the middle of the scheme. Continuing to move round, number 25 to 29. Here are those sort of white stucco villas, if you like, with the new shop fronts on the south elevation, aligned with the existing alignment of the high street. And you can start to see on the right of the scheme the sort of secondary entrance to relieve some of the sort of congestion, if you like, giving access to that important bus stop that I mentioned, which is just off to the right of the slide. Moving around a little bit further, you can see number 35 on the corner, and the new building we're proposing next to that, retail at the ground floor, offices at the upper level. Moving round the corner, we now have our back to the station. We're looking south, so the Broadway is at the left-hand side of the slide. You can see number 35 at the left-hand side, the red brick building, the new building we're proposing adjacent to that, and then the larger office component on the right-hand side with a range of sort of cafe and leisure spaces in the double height entrance on the right-hand side. And we'll now take a journey into the main courtyard space. This is the main view from the other side of the road. The station is on the right-hand side of the viewer here, and you can see down into the landscape, the office entrance in the distance, and a series of terraces at the upper levels, green spaces for the workers who work within the office. And the idea is that this is really a step-free landscape, which takes you from the Broadway station level here through to the station Broadway, through to the main Broadway at the south. And just behind, you see that there's a couple here. Just further on down there on the right-hand side is the new entrance to the Ealing Club at lower ground level. The main courtyard space at the bottom of that view, where we've just walked down. Here's that landscape space, a sort of courtyard. We're calling it a yard. On the right-hand side, a number of cafe spaces in the sunnier part of the project, spilling out into the public realm. You can see the office entrance in the centre of the plan, and the terraces at the upper level. And on the left, a series of the existing buildings. Those are the rear of some of the existing buildings where we've carefully peeled away the later extensions to those buildings, and we're now going to install a series of metal and glass contemporary shopfront insertions, if you like, between the existing party walls to give as much sort of transparency and connection through to the Broadway as we can. And I think just to end, this is the view of the courtyard. It's really in the evening. We now have our back to the office entrance, and we're looking really towards the station. And a series of cafe type uses can spill out. So we're hoping this really becomes a 365-day-a-year space, perhaps 18 hours a day, surrounded by a number of really active uses for Ealing. So I think now I'm going to hand over to David Bloy, who's going to talk a little bit more about the overall benefits of the scheme.
Thanks, Richard. So just in terms of the benefits, and I appreciate this is quite a busy slide, and I'm also conscious of time because I know there's a number of questions coming in. So I'm just going to pick out a few of these that I think are worthy of mentioning. And the first really is the potential to see nearly £8 million worth of additional spend from the office workers going to the town shops, restaurants, cafes, etc., which will inevitably have a knock-on benefit to the businesses trading in the town centre. And it's also likely to attract an improved array of new retail and food and beverage tenants into the town. And during the consultation, we've had a number of comments about, well, why you're trying to provide additional floor space as part of this scheme. You've got Dickens Yard that is struggling to let a lot of their units. And what we're doing here is, this is prime pitch Ealing. This is where the footfall is going to exist. And we're actually providing quite a substantial reduction in overall floor space as part of this. So we think that this prime area of Ealing will really thrive with this scheme coming forward. And the second thing I wanted to really mention as well is the approach that we've taken to retaining the integrity of the historic high street by retaining the existing buildings which contribute the most to the conservation area. I live in Ealing. We've been liaising with a number of the key bodies, the key groups in Ealing, the Civic Society, over the importance of some of these buildings. And I also just wanted to flag, as part of that kind of cultural historic offer, is the reprovision of the Ealing Club as well into a fantastic new facility in broadly the same place that it currently stands. And finally, I sort of, this is something that I think has gone a little bit amiss as part of the consultation. It's not something we've really shouted about, but during in building design terms, this is likely to be the most sustainable commercial building that the Borough of Ealing has ever seen. And that's something we've really sort of worked on hard with the rest of the team to actually achieve this. And we think this will be a flagship building, the most sustainable, as I said, to come to Ealing if we could obviously get planning approval. So on that note, I'm going to hand you back to Lorena for the Q&A.